Good morning. Welcome to our Municipal Council agenda for Wednesday, September 7th, 2022. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declaration of interest. Seeing none, I will move along to the land acknowledgement. Technical difficulty here for a moment. The Town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nations and other Indigenous peoples, and on behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and the environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. I will move along to community announcements. I do have a couple to share, and then I will see if other members of Council also. On August 19th, Council joined Choice Properties, Loblaw Companies Limited, and Rice Group for the groundbreaking ceremony of the Loblaw Distribution Centre on Woodbine. This is a very exciting project for East Gwillimbury, and I want to again extend thanks and appreciation to all who worked so hard to make this happen. Last evening, we celebrated the Nemne family as the recipient of the 2022 Portrait of Giving Award. Congratulations to the family for this wonderful recognition. And this coming Friday, September 9th, the Sharon Temple is hosting their illumination event. There will be a live performance followed by the illumination of the temple by candlelight. If you haven't seen it, you've really missed something. This is a beautiful experience, and it is not already sold out. Consider attending this event for Friday night. Check on our online site for tickets and for details. Are there any community announcements from members of Council? Councillor Roy-DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to advise Council that on August 13th, the Sharon Queensville Community Group held a park party at Manorhampton Park. It was a huge success. There were several hundred people there, and I wanted to give my thanks to staff from our library and from emergency services for bringing their equipment and their public education material and so on. So it was a really wonderful afternoon. And I did want to just let folks know that the library's giant used book sale is back. And it's earlier this fall. It's normally held in October during Public Libraries Week, but we were able to get the room a little bit earlier. So it's on September 16th, which is the Friday evening, and Saturday the 17th. So I know people during the pandemic were having a lot of books to get rid of and wanting to refresh their libraries, and so we've got lots of great stock for people to come out and check out. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The times that's open, could you share with us?
I don't have them offhand. There should be quite a few advertisements around town. I believe it's Saturday evening starting at 7, and then Friday evening starting at 7 for an hour or two, and then the main part of it's all day Saturday.
All day Saturday.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have given you a heads up on that one, but I didn't have it in my mind either. Thank you. Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to mention that a couple of weeks ago we had the North Union Hall Corn Roast. It was a community event that the good volunteers at North Union Hall put on, and it was a complete success. And thank you to everyone that attended, but a special thanks to all the volunteers that showed up and made it happen. And if anyone left hungry, it was your own fault. So it was a great event. Secondly, I wanted to thank town staff for all the efforts that went into opening the Couples Farm Park in Mount Albert. It was a really nice event, had a great turnout, and I know the park is well appreciated by the local residents, and special thanks to the Parks and Recreation staff that made it happen, and it looked great. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments at this point? Just before you do, I have one other item. We have a deputation at this point, I believe.
Through Madam Mayor, that's correct. We do have the deputants on the call this morning. We are joined by Benn-John, the Women's Support Network for York Region, to make a deputation to Council under item E1.
Thank you. Welcome. Good to have you with us today.
Good morning. Thank you. Welcome. Are you starting with us?
We are.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to have my colleague Shannon Road begin. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Honorable Mayor, Council members, and community members. My name is Shannon Road, Program Manager at the Women's Support Network. Thank you for this opportunity to address you today. We will share critical information regarding the issue of sexual violence in our communities. The Women's Support Network of York Region, also referred to as WSN, was established in Newmarket in 1992 as a nonprofit registered charity. WSN is York Region's only sexual violence and rape crisis center. Our catchment includes 9 municipalities, and our work has 3 portfolios: sexual violence, commercial sex trafficking, and prevention work through public education. Sexual violence includes any violence that violates the sexual integrity of a person or targets their sexuality. This can include unwanted sexual touching, rape, online sexual harassment, childhood sexual abuse, and even sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is a form of human trafficking that involves recruiting, moving, or holding victims for profit through sexual exploitation. In September 2019, Statistics Canada released statistics that revealed that sexual assault in Ontario rose from 7,434 police-reported incidences in 2016 and 8,782 in 2017 to 10,634 in 2018, a year-over-year increase of almost 19%. These statistics draw on data on police-reported crimes. The most recent Statistics Canada report, which found that sexual assault rates in 2021 are at our highest since 1996, also reflects this trend of an increase in reported assaults. But as we know at WSN, very few sexual violence survivors engage in the criminal justice system. This means that the prevalence of sexual violence in Ontario is in fact far higher.
In 2020, the York Regional Police Services received 691 reports of sexual assault violations. This represents a minority of the survivors that WSN works with annually. With the pandemic, WSN saw 68% increase in calls on our 24/7 crisis line and messages on the online chat service received. This represents a total of 3,726 calls and chat support responded to. 39% increase of survivors accessing individual sexual violence trauma counseling. 82 survivors of human trafficking or at risk of human trafficking sought support through WSN's virtual groups implemented during the pandemic. WSN's waitlist for service is growing, and youth are the fastest growing demographic seeking support. Funding for sexual assault centers has not kept pace with the increase in demand for services pre and during the COVID-19 pandemic. Instead, Ontario's sexual assault centers have seen cuts, for example, 5% in 1995, nominal increases, and some small increases connected to provincial action plans that were not always continued. In 2018, the then Ontario government announced an approximately 30% increase to the sexual violence sector in Ontario. Despite this commitment, under the current provincial government, unfortunately, the funding increase never became reality. In the 2021 budget, Ontario allocated some positive investments to address gender-based violence, but these funds were not directly allocated to Ontario's existing sexual assault centers. Other arms of government have recognized the need for a better resource sexual violence response. In December 2021, the town of Bracebridge. In August 2022, the city of Kingston. June 2022, the region of Waterloo. Each passed a resolution recognizing this need and asking the province to provide increased and sustainable funding for community-based sexual assault centers. Will the town of East Gwillimbury do the same? WSN is requesting that the town endorse a resolution calling upon the province to provide increased and sustainable funding for community-based sexual assault centers like WSN. In your package is a draft resolution for your consideration. Increased resources means more support for people experiencing sexual violence, less time waiting for counseling, and timely access to prevention education so that young people know their rights and can be safe. Honorable Mayor, Council members, and community members, thank you for sharing your time with us. For more information, visit our website at womensupportnetwork.ca. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members of council, other questions of our presenter this morning? I have one. If you could share with us where your funding does come from. It sounds like that some has not been brought up to speed, and I'm just wondering if you have new and different areas for funding at this point.
Thank you for your question. As of 2022, our former core funder, Ministry of the Attorney General, Ontario Victim Services, they funded WSN with core funding to provide sexual assault services only to the age 16 and up. And now that the ministries have transferred over this portfolio, our new core funder is Ministry of Children and Community and Social Services. So they have been funding our anti-human trafficking services. They now fund sexual violence and anti-human trafficking. However, both funding portfolios fund age 16 and up. So we sought project funding to service youth. For example, through the Department of Women and Gender Equality, they fund our anti-human trafficking counseling service for youth at this time. And we've sought other project grants, which you know what's challenging with project grants is they are time limited. So they may be 1 year. You know, some of the funding that we were able to access in response to COVID is not renewable, and that would be time limited funding to support some of the urgent needs the agency was experiencing in terms of our operations, but some new and emerging needs of the community members that we serve who were gravely impacted by the pandemic in terms of financially, but also unfortunately increased occurrences of assault and needing immediate crisis support. So that funding has come from Canadian Women's Foundation, Ontario Trillium Foundation, for example. We do have funding, it's a project funding from Region of York Housing to house women that have experienced human trafficking.
Thank you. Questions from members of council? I'm not seeing any at this time. Will you also be making a presentation to Regional Council at some point?
Yes, we are hoping to get on their agenda at some point. We've reached out and at this time they don't have a spot available for us. So we are hoping that we can in fact get a spot to speak with them. They've encouraged us, I believe, to speak with York Regional Police first before coming back to them.
That was going to be my suggestion as well. I look forward to having your presentation at Regional Council. I think that there may be more opportunities at the region. However, your request for us to support this it still stands with East Gwillimbury. So I think that both steps are very good. Not seeing any questions or comments at this point. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone, Councillor Carruthers, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being with us today, and we'll keep an eye on your presentations as you move through some other members of elected officials. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other deputations at this time. I will move along to presentations, and we have a verbal update by Councillor Persechini this morning. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you all probably know at this time that I did not get registered for re-electing, and I personally want to thank the Mayor and Virginia Haxon and Council for all the support has been given me over the past 8 years. It has been an honor to represent the residents of East Gwillimbury, to serve them, and an advocate for the importance of them over the past 8 years while on council. I also want to acknowledge the senior staff team and all the dedicated staff to deliver quality programs and service to our residents. Of course, I can't forget my friend Tom Webster and his staff. Has always been there. Great leadership from Tom. My first term was with the Finance Department. I want to express my thanks to Mark Valchik and his team. We accomplished a lot during those terms because of the good people and the department who worked together to make things happen. My second term was with Parks and Recs. I worked with Aaron Cosman and still am there, an amazing team here too. Everyone moved projects forward to their amazing ability to work closely with each other. When things needed to be done, I could always count on Mike Molinari to his management team to make it happen. Working with Gina Casey, the executive director, was always a pleasure. She was always another person I could count always when I needed her help. Randy Bell in the IT department was good sense in helping me with all my computer inquiries and my frustration. It would always be with him, even if I had to make house calls to fix my computer. Thank you, Randy. And I thank the people in EG who give me the 2 terms in council. What an opportunity, working with such wonderful people. To all the departments, volunteers, committees, members, friends, families who helped me along the way, my heartfelt thank you. During the 8 years, I have been surrounded by good and conscientious, hardworking people. We have the best staff an organization could ever happen. We are blessed with associated with all you and proud and being part of the EG team. I'm not going anywhere. I would like to opportunity of continue to contribute values in the community in a different capacity. Here in a partnership that will continue to do so in the future. So I love you all. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. If I missed anybody, believe me, I didn't do it by delivery. I thank you all. Thank you so much. It's been a great ride. What a great team.
Thank you very much, Councillor Persechini, for your kind words and your comments. You've been a valuable part of council for the past 2 terms, and you certainly will be missed. A formal recognition and acknowledgement of your service will be done at the October 4th meeting, which is the final meeting of this council. At this time, I have a resolution, be it resolved that the verbal update provided by Councillor Persechini dated September 7th, 2022 be received. Moved by, wow, we've got, everybody wants to move it in second. Councillor Foster, Councillor Crone, all those in favor, and it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a sad day, but it's, I think it's good for you.
I'm not going anywhere.
I know that. With that, I will move along to item G in our agenda, and that's the adoption of the minutes from our special meeting held on August 16th, 2022. Are there questions on the minutes first? Not seeing any. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Persechini, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? And that's carried. Item H is our finance, and Mr. Webster, I think you have a lead-in for this.
I do, Madam Mayor. It's actually about staff attendance. We have some very important matters on this agenda, and we do have a couple of senior staff members who have carriage of those items who are not feeling well, and they're utilizing our hybrid council method right now, so they are available, but they will be remote. So I just wanted to indicate that to council before we start moving into the agenda.
Thank you very much. We may be out of COVID, but we're still not out of people not feeling their best. With that, we'll do everything that we can to make sure that they are comfortable and that we're able to have the reports from them as needed along the way. Item H, the finance general manager, Marshall. Item number 1, finance presentation 2022 mid-year financial overview.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. The presentation we have for you this morning provides an overview of how we're tracking financially at mid-year compared to our 2022 approved budget. So we can go to the next slide, please. So just to remind council, in 2022, we approved a budget totaling $67.4 million. $24 million of that applies to our capital program, and $43.4 million of that total represents our operating budget, which is split out into the tax-supported, fee-supported, and water and wastewater supported functions of our operating program. So with me today, I have the Director of Finance and Deputy Treasurer Valadima. She's going to be stepping you through the results of our operating program for 2022, and then maybe after that she can pause to take any questions, and then after that Carolyn Brown, who's the Manager of Development Finance, she'll be able to go through the capital results for you and take any questions at that time as well. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to Ms. Adima.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Next slide, please. Our financial analysis at the end of June shows that our expenditures are very close to about half of our annual approved budget. At mid-year, we do expect to see some variances due to timing of expenses throughout the year. In our tax-supported programs, we are seeing some gapping in the salaries and benefits area resulting from position vacancies and delayed hiring in the first half of the year. We do not expect this to continue in the final half, and we will see a modest surplus here by year end. These savings are offset by increased costs in software licensing due to changes in cloud-based computing and remote work, as well as rising costs of those licenses. We're also seeing utilities such as hydro and natural gas with increasing costs. Waste collection is another area with a cost increase due to increased collection volumes. These increased costs are being offset where possible by savings in other areas. In the fee-supported programs, the main source of the underspend is coming from salaries and benefits as well as our indirect corporate costs are not allocated until the end of the year, so that comes into our timing aspect for measuring variances at middle of the year. Within the rate-supported program or water and wastewater operations, main variances are caused by timing of expenditures throughout the year. We're seeing higher water supply costs offset by increased revenue due to higher volume consumption. Overall, at this time, we're expecting to see a modest surplus at year end due to some cost savings, but the majority of the year end surplus will be related to increased revenue in our building and planning areas. I can pause now for any questions before handing the presentation over to Ms. Brown.
Thank you. Questions at this time? I'm not seeing any. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Next slide.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Excuse me, our total 2022 capital budget includes $24.7 million in project costs. This slide provides an illustration of the breakdown of those costs by department. As you can clearly see, the Community Parks, Recreation and Culture Department accounts for the greatest share of the overall program, which is due to the Health and Active Living Plaza, which was approved just last year. 10.99, almost 11 million, or 45% of the total program is associated with this facility. Next slide, please. Thank you. The town currently has 141 open capital projects with a total budget of $61.1 million. This includes the $24.7 million that was approved last year that we discussed on the previous slide. At mid-year, this year, $30.4 million, or almost half of the project costs, have been spent, with the remaining $30 million unspent. Through discussions with town staff, we expect that about 72 of these projects will be closed at the end of the year. And as always, we will be bringing forward a list of projects that are going to be carried forward to 2023 to council as part of the budget process. Next slide, please. So this slide has quite a bit of information on it, but it serves to provide a status update on our major capital projects that remain open. We're defining major as anything with an approved budget of over $600,000. You can see that most of these projects will be carried forward to 2023. Major projects tend to be multi-year. Of note, we'd like to point out that the Operations Center Capital Project, which of course has been a multi-year initiative, is set to close at the end of the year. We'd also like to highlight the Oriole Drive Pedestrian Bridge and Trail, which is also nearing completion. The Health and Active Living Plaza project, you'll note, has no spending towards it yet. However, we expect to tender very soon, and we will begin incurring costs. So if you have any questions on the specifics of these projects, specifically their mid-year status, we invite you to direct them towards the general managers for further detail. That concludes our presentation, Madam Mayor. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Questions from members of council? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to I will say General Manager Molinari, but one of the projects that we're carrying forward to 2023, it's the Mount Albert sidewalk. I think this was budgeted in previous term council. We've been carrying it for a while. I think we might have to get a chiropractor for all the back strain of carrying this. And I know there are multi-jurisdictions involved with getting this thing approved. What is happening with this sidewalk? Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, can you comment on that, or should we be asking Mr. Molinari?
I believe that's best directed towards Mr. Molinari.
Mr. Molinari, you're with us, I understand.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, and through you to Councillor Crone. Mr. Molinari is absent with notice today, so I will be standing in his place. Mr. Crone, Councillor Crone, you were absolutely right. Due to the multi-levels of jurisdiction involved in this sidewalk, it, yes, in fact, has been quite a challenge. I believe we are now getting closer. Unfortunately, I think this construction season is going to pass us by, but we are very encouraged to think that it will be constructed next year.
Okay.
Mr. Webster, go ahead, please.
I'm not in charge of the sidewalks, but I can give a little update on this one because I know it well. The roadblock here has really been the province on Highway 48. And we've had some great difficulties with MTO over the years. We've diligently worked on a design, have everything ready to go. Until recently, Madam Mayor, you approached Caroline Mulrooney's office, and it really helped start paving the way towards getting this done. And if not late this fall, hopefully early in the spring, we'll have all the approvals in place to get this much-needed piece of infrastructure constructed.
Is it time to go back to our provincial representatives to see if they can move it along, or is there confidence that it's going to follow the right course?
I think there's confidence now. There was a sea change once it was raised to her level, and there seemed to be an openness to getting it done. So once Mr. Molinari gets back, we will certainly get an update for council, hopefully for the September 20th meeting on projected timing.
Obviously, we're into October, so it won't be happening until the spring, and let's keep an eye on that one very closely to make sure that it does happen. I know that a number of residents use that area. It is not safe, and when talking to Caroline Mulrooney, I indicated to her the urgency of making sure that was completed as that community in Mount Albert grows. The grocery store becomes more and more important to people, and they do walk there. It's a walkable community, and it should be safe with the sidewalk. So we'll keep an eye on that one, and should we have to go back to the province and ask again, then we'll go ahead and do so. Thank you for your question. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
On this list that will be carried forward past 2023.
Ms. Brown, would you know that?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. We typically, when we review these projects at mid-year, we simply look to the status of the projects, whether or not it's going to be carried forward into the next year. The conversation does not usually extend to sort of how many years the project will go on for. So if you have questions about any of the specific projects, perhaps we could provide more of a detailed status update for you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you, staff. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone, Councillor Persechini, all those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you very much. Item number 2 is the finance report with the contract award external audit services.
Yes, thanks. Through you, Madam Mayor. This report is regarding our external auditor. So we're required by the Municipal Act to retain a licensed independent auditor to review our financial statements on an annual basis. So our contract with our current auditor, BDO, is due for renewal this year. So what we've done, which is what we did in 2017 to retain audit services, we joined with the Northern 6 municipalities, and we sent out a joint RFP to get services for our external auditors. And we went through the process this time, and the result was KPMG receiving the highest ranking. So this report is seeking authority to award the contract to KPMG for a 7-year term. And when I checked a few weeks ago, all these 6 municipalities are moving forward with awarding contract to KPMG. So I'm happy to answer any questions on this.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just bear with us for a moment. It appears that the mics are having a moment, so just bear with us for a moment. Okay.
We're not on right now.
Madam Mayor? Madam Mayor? Should we suggest maybe a 5-minute technical recess, and then we'll get this straightened out, hopefully?
Perhaps we should suggest a 5-minute technical recess and come back when everyone has a microphone that's working. Thank you. We're back again. It must have been some little chipmunks that were involved in our correspondence today. We're back and we're at the finance report, contract award, external audit services, number 2 of our finance general manager Marshall's report. And I believe that we did not give an opportunity for members of council to ask any questions on this report. I think we left off there. Are there questions regarding this report at this time? Councillor Roy-DiClemente, I believe you have some questions at this point.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I just, through you to Mr. Marshall, the previous contract with BDO was for 3 years with an option to renew for 2 more in 1-year increments. I'm just wondering what the rationale is for us to award a 7-year contract if we were only working with a 5-year term at the last time.
So through you, Madam Mayor, we can award a 7-year. The term of the contract is a 3-year, but we have options for 1-year awards of contract, and it's up to our discretion only. So I think we've put in the report that we would review after that period. If we didn't, I apologize, but we would review after each year to determine whether we would go ahead with the award for the next year. But this gives us permission to go ahead with a 7-year if we decide to.
So wouldn't it be more prudent for us to award the 3-year contract and then have you come back to us at the end of those 3 years to let us know how it's gone and to seek permission to go to the rest of the way with the contract, to do the extension, rather than the full 7 years at $400,000 right now?
So through you, Madam Mayor, this doesn't oblige us to go for the 7 years. This gives us permission to if we decide to. So I think it gives more certainty to the applicant that we are proceeding with them, but they still have to perform, and they know that if they're not performing properly, that we can not award at any time after that 3-year period.
The resolution that's presented to us today says that we are awarding a contract for external audit services for a 7-year term in the amount of $403,000. I apologize to you, Mr. Marshall, if it said in here that there was a review process and that there would be further reporting to council. I'm just operating with what's in front of us, and I'm not seeing what I feel it gives me the confidence that it has the ability to exit if we're not getting the service level that we expect.
Mr. Webster, go ahead, please.
I think the councillor makes an excellent point. In the interest of transparency, I think the recommendation should be broadened to include the fact that it's a 3 + 4 1-year term renewal options, and it would allow for us to provide an advisement to council regarding the extension on an annual basis as well. So I think if we could have the clerk and the finance department make that a little clearer in the recommendation, it would be more transparent for public disclosure.
Thank you. Councillor Persechini, go ahead, please.
Madam Mayor, just curious to know, by doing it the full 7 years and broken down how they said, will we get a discount because we do it that way? Or is there some reason that we would get, some sort of a discount?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the prices that they've quoted would be the price that we'd get awarded. So there isn't a discount if we decided to continue for the 7 years.
Mr. Webster, go ahead, please.
I think one of the challenges we have with a budget is when a number changes each year, or when you open up a tender, it opens up. So I think what it does is that it gives you certainty in this service provider for 7 years. It would give you the base price plus inflation. We can't control inflation, but it certainly does give you certainty if we continue with this particular vendor.
Councillor Roy-DiClemente?
If we're amending the motion to reflect that there is, that it's an award for 3 years with options to renew at the same price, then I'm fine with that. It was just the way that this was worded, as Mr. Webster said, wasn't as transparent as I might have liked to see it, and so I appreciate staff stepping up with that. Thank you.
And will you move that?
I'm happy to move an amended resolution, but I think the clerk is working on it.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was just going to place a resolution before council for everybody's consideration. So the second clause of the resolution will be amended to reflect that council award the contract for external audit services to KPMG LLP for a 3-year term with an option to renew.
Go ahead,
I believe
please.
it's for a 3-year term with an option, or with options to renew for a further 4 years? Or with 4 options to renew for another year at a time. I'm not sure how staff would like to see it.
3-year term with option to renew annually.
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The resolution is placed before council, and the highlighted blue text is the revised version of it.
Happy to move that, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Persechini, all those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any other items under finance at this point?
None at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're moving to Community Parks, Recreation, and Culture with General Manager Carmazin.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, we have 2 prepared agenda items under the department. The first report recommends an award for a replacement ice resurfacer at our sports complex. Staff would like to note that the proposed equipment is more environmentally friendly, and it also should be noted, in addition to the information provided in the report, that there's an approximate return on investment for the net difference in cost of approximately 5 to 6 years, with a typical life cycle on the machine of 7 to 10 years for the equipment. I can confirm that New Roads Automotive has confirmed sponsorship in part of the replacement ice resurfacer in the amount of $90,000, and the project can be fully funded through the Facilities Capital Reserve account. Be happy to answer any questions related to the report.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Carmazin? Councillor Roy-DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Carmazin. I believe your report said that the ice resurfacers have a life cycle of 5 to 6 year. Is that a gas powered one, or is that the electric? Is the electric one have a longer lifespan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the average lifespan is approximately 7 to 10 years, and the only difference between an electric ice resurfacer and a natural gas powered ice resurfacer is essentially the drivetrain is electric powered. So we're anticipating that the same life cycle would apply for the electric ice resurfacer as the same as a natural gas machine.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Foster, Councillor Persechini, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Are there any other items at this time? We do have a second report to deal with. Go ahead, please, Mr. Carmazin.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. This is a memo that provides an update for council related to the continuation of a partnership agreement with the York Region District School Board for some successful program space that we're in partnership with at Harvest Hills Activity Center at Phoebe Gilman public school in Holland Landing within East Gwillimbury. Be happy to answer any questions related to the memorandum.
Questions, comments? I can't believe it's been that long. We were charting new waters at that point, and it has worked out extremely well, working with our trustee, as a matter of fact, at that point. So I guess for me, the one comment would be, as we continue to grow, might there be other opportunities with the school board to do exactly the same thing, in that the area that is built is jointly used, with East Gwillimbury putting dollars into a facility attached to our elementary schools at this point. I think it's brilliant. When you think about Harvest Hills and that community, many people, when they bought their homes, thought that they were moving to Newmarket because they were on the south side of Green Lane, and that was quite an education that we undertook. But the fact that we had a recreation facility for that community dedicated to them, and I know it's been used for a variety of activities, and it's been very well received, that we should continue to think, as we move forward in some other communities, that we should be looking at that as well. I'm certainly hoping that in our next term of council, we'll be talking about new schools that are going to be built in a variety of places in East Gwillimbury. And if we can do a shared use facility, all the better for the community that it involves. I'm not seeing any questions, comments. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Roy-DiClemente, Councillor Carruthers, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Mr. Karmazin, any other items at this time for us?
Through you, Madam Mayor, nothing specific under the department. We do have a joint administration report later in the agenda, which we will be presenting. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of Mr. Karmazin before we move along to the next area? I'm not seeing any. Thank you. Item J is corporate services, and Mr. Velchik, we'll hear from you.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. This report is pretty self-explanatory. I believe it's intended to provide an update on an opportunity to expand internet access and services throughout East Gwillimbury. This is, although we are not an internet service provider, this report recommends that the town play a facilitation role in assisting to potentially bring appropriate internet service to almost 200 homes in underserviced areas in East Gwillimbury. Our Director of Economic Development, Margot Benn-John, is present and has been doing a lot of work on this and is available to answer any specific questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Ms. Regine, did you want to speak to this at all, or would you want to wait for if there are any questions?
Well, certainly, Madam Mayor, just to clarify that, as Council would remember, we discussed this approach as part of a broadband update many months ago. It has been a long process. We're working with an internet service provider to hopefully, as we do with any willing partner, to leverage an opportunity to expand fiber to the home connectivity. The purpose of the report today is more to get Council's approval of the ability to, once we reach the threshold and we have enough participants and we feel confident that we'll meet the minimum threshold, to then move to the next step to collect funds and hold those funds on behalf of the participating residents. So it's really more about the financial aspect of this initiative.
Thank you very much. Questions? I'm sure there's 188 households that are pretty happy about this and should be very excited as we move forward with this one. Councillor Carruthers and then Councillor Roy-DiClemente. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I just want to be clear that these homes, if they waited, they would eventually get it. So they're paying money up front that will not be refunded to them.
No, this is the option that we're presenting is to expedite fiber to the home connectivity. The plan is for ultimately through YorkNet and their private internet service provider partner to be able to build infrastructure along all regional roads that would ultimately reach most residences in East Gwillimbury. The advantage is that if people so choose, they have the option to connect up to 24 months earlier than would happen with the YorkNet approach. So really, it's an investment in accessing a higher quality service sooner. So certainly, residents are under no obligation to participate. We're just presenting the option to them, and should they wish to do so, we'll certainly facilitate and coordinate that participation.
I really appreciate that we're giving them that option. I think that's fantastic. I was just trying to wrap my head around that. That residents would be paying for infrastructure that the ISP would pay for down the road, and they're paying for it now. And I just feel like there should be some sort of reimbursement when they would, in a year or two, when that infrastructure was going to come anyways. So the ISP is saving money by doing this because they're not going to have to invest it.
Well,
It's interesting.
Through you, Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
we're talking about two different ISPs. So the ISP partner that was working with YorkNet is a different company, and so their advantage is that they would have, they're doing last mile connection to infrastructure that's being laid by YorkNet. So,
Okay.
you know, certainly this model of a resident contribution has existed in other jurisdictions, and from the internet service provider's perspective, they're looking at some of these residences that are physically too far from their infrastructure. So it's a matter of, you know, if it costs X, and that's what their business plan it allows for, anything over and above that, you know, in order to get them to consider it, it's through the model of the resident contribution. So,
Okay.
yeah, so again, it's really just paying for the access to happen sooner. So.
That makes sense when you explain it that way. After these 188 homes, how many would we have left that would still need?
We would, after this plus the other builds that are happening, pardon me, through you, Madam Mayor, we'll be at approximately 94% connectivity. Unfortunately, those last ones that are more remote are always the more challenging. We continue to explore other options, you know, in the interim, such as Starlink and some of the wireless options, but ultimately, we're still working toward the goal of fiber to the home as the sort of the ultimate future-proof solution for all residents and businesses.
Okay. Some of those homes are not remote. They're just like a kilometer away. I don't know if that considers remote. So I would love to see a map of the areas that are still not served after this, so we can figure out where to put pressure on our ISPs to, if there's an extra kilometer here or there, try and get some of those done. Thank you.
I can assure you, Councillor Carruthers, I sit on YorkNet at the region, and this isn't new for communities. It's new for us, but it does speak to some of those communities that have been waiting a long time. So I think that it's the best that we have right now, and I think these 188 homes will be very happy with their internet coming to them. So. All good. Councillor Roy-DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Ms. Benn-John, I would like to echo the request for that map. I think when we had heard last from our task force, we're looking at mapping to sort of scope the issue. And so this is, I guess, one version of that map. And so once we get to the next piece, then we'll have a really good sense of where those gaps are. Through you, Madam Mayor, do we have a sense of what these homes may be paying on a monthly basis? I know in the past when we've heard from residents during other issues, they were paying hundreds of dollars a month for a mediocre connection. So I'm trying to understand, you know, the $2,100 per home. What does that translate into as far as how long does it take them to pay it off in savings on their monthly bills? And the second part of that question is, are we in a position, or is the ISP in a position to stretch out some of those payments if it presents an economic hardship for that family to be able to do that? I'm just wondering about that. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the first point about the mapping, we do have extensive mapping of the gap areas as a result of the work that we did with our broadband consultant. It's a little bit of, there's some sort of educated guesswork involved in that because not all the ISPs are willing to share where their infrastructure is and where they're building. So, but we do have, you know, as accurate as possible mapping. So I'm happy to provide that to council members. And then to your second question about the value, we know anecdotally, and it certainly depends on use and demand, but we know that there are some residents paying, you know, up to $500 a month for wireless services. So again, this that's why we're presenting it as an option, because it has to make financial sense for, you know, and you know, the need needs, it has to be there. And then to the other question, we always retain the ability to work with individual residents if there is, you know, if there's an economic need, and we can, whether it's a matter of setting up more options to spread the payments over time. Treasurer Marshall has indicated that the finance department stands ready to be able to provide that support if there is a need, because we do want to make this accessible to everybody.
Thank you. I wonder if we might want to build that into our resolution, so that, or at least direction to you, that when we are reaching out to these 188 properties and residents, that it's not simply a request or a demand for $2,100, but that this is a project that requires that 150 people sign up, and that if this is a challenge, because not everybody's necessarily going to be paying $500 a month. They're going to be saying, I'm out, I'm going to go use Wi-Fi at Starbucks, and not participate in that part of the world because I simply can't. And I'm wondering if we at least give you that direction so that you have the leeway to do that. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it is noted in the report that part of the initiative retains that flexibility to work with individual financial circumstances. Our plan is really to do, you know, an outreach, direct mail outreach to these affected residences first, and then that's a start of an ongoing conversation. We don't anticipate that people are going to sign up right away. They're going to need, you know, they'll need additional support to make that decision, and then part of that conversation can then be about if there are individual financial circumstances that need to be addressed. We'll have a letter that goes out. We'll have supporting information and sort of frequently asked questions on the website, and support it with social media. And then we anticipate that there will be in-person meetings as well to sort of talk through the process.
I think the opportunity will be very well received, and I think that's how we need to share it with our community, that it is an opportunity for them. I'd be interested in having a look at the maps as well. So I think that everyone is nodding that if we can share them, we'll have a better understanding as we're talking to the community on those 188 homes, whether it's all in one area or it's spaced along several roads, to communicate with them. So thank you very much. Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Ms. Benn-John, I just wanted to thank you for all the hard work. I know this particular project was a bit of a journey, and working with you on the broadband working group, I know that we have looked under every stone and tried to identify different ways to tackle this problem that we set out 4 years ago to undertake, and we have. Even though, you know, broadband are not municipal utilities, we have used our powers of persuasion and engagement and you know, looking at our own internal processes to speed things up a bit. And so I think we've gone to great lengths to tackle this problem the best we can. If you had told me 4 years ago that we would be bringing fiber optic cable into the concession roads and in the rural parts of East Gwillimbury, I would have told you were nuts. I wouldn't think it would have happened in my lifetime. And here we are. We're talking about different ways of getting it. We know YorkNet is going to provide some. Now this, I think this is marvelous what we can do. It has the flexibility for those that can't fork over the money up front, that we will work with them. And so I really appreciate that staff and the ISP were able to bridge that gap. But I also think it's important to know that, as you mentioned before, Ms. Benn-John, that fiber is future-proof, and that is the way to go if you want reliable, strong, fast internet. That's the way to go. Starlink, if you look at probably the next closest competitor for speed, to buy the equipment, the dish, the modem, to go along with that in the first month's worth of service, you're probably getting close to $1,000 in itself. So when you business case this out, it makes a ton of sense for people to do this, and the utility, the ISP, would probably not do this otherwise in such a remote areas. So I think it's a great thing that we can do, and I hope I can count on the rest of my council colleagues to support this motion. I think it would be invaluable, certainly for the rural parts of our town, to help get them into the 21st century. And we know COVID really shone a light on how inadequate our current systems were. And so I want to applaud staff and the Broadband Working Group for the work they've done, and I hope everyone can support this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Go ahead, Ms. Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to clarify that our role in this initiative is to be a facilitator, basically between the customer or our constituent who wishes to have faster broadband to the home and the ISP, which is going to apparently provide this if there's enough take-up of these residents to do so. We cannot sort of venture further into the realm without possibly, being considered to be a telecom provider, which we are not, and we don't intend to be. So the initiative is simply to, be a facilitator. We can't control if the ISP wants that money up front or is willing to have some kind of a payment. And we can't offer that as well internally, because we run the risk of stepping over that line of going from a facilitator role to a telecommunications provider.
Thank you. Are there questions? I'm not seeing any. Thank you for your clarification.
You're welcome.
Councillor Crone, you will move this. Thank you. And Councillor Roy-DiClemente will second that. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to these 188 people being able to communicate with us in a different fashion over the years to come. Very good. Mr. Velchik, are there any other items under corporate services for us at this time?
There's nothing further at this time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll move along to development services with General Manager Cook. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of council. So this next item is a good news story. And in working together with the region and the Sharon West Landowners Group, the town has now secured additional servicing capacity for the Sharon West area. This report is requesting council's authorization to enter into a tri-party agreement with the region and the Sharon West Owners Group to implement a Sharon inline storage solution. I kind of want to give a brief education on this matter. So I guess just Bear with me for a bit here as I continue giving a brief overview of the solution. So what is this solution? So in general, the inline solution is going to utilize the existing infrastructure to install a gate that will operate by the region and within the sewer system to hold back the flow of the Sharon trunk to create this additional allocation in the system. And when we're compiling, what we want to know is how much servicing are we anticipating here? Well, this solution will provide an additional plus or minus 405 residential units over 7 draft approved plans of subdivision in the area. The Appendix 1 of this report gives you an idea of where those additional servicing units will go and apply to. And this is not going to be fully built out. There are going to be still units remaining. It's approximately 130 of them. It's also illustrated in Appendix 1 in blue. Some of the key principles that we are entering to this tri-party agreement is also listed in the report. But in general, the town is not paying for the cost of this upgrade. This is a regional system that's being funded by the Sharon West Landowners Group. The town's reserve is not being used to help complete the majority of these approved subdivision from 2010. And there's an understanding that with the region that they'll continue to monitor this system to see how well it will work, with the possibility of securing additional service and capacity to help complete the remaining 130 units. And in terms of timing, well, the timing of the whole construction of the actual homes, of course, will be market driven. But we do have conditions in this tri-party agreement to ensure that they will need to register these draft plan of subdivisions within the 3 years of obtaining the allocation. Happy to answer any additional questions you have, but that's the end of my introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Questions? Councillor Roy-DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Cook or perhaps to Mr. Newman. This is a solution that's proposed with a lifespan of about 10 years. What's the plan, given the fact that we have waited a while for UYSS? What happens at the end of 10 years?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I could provide a brief overview, and perhaps Mr. Newman can probably supplement. Through the tri-party agreements, understanding that the region will take control of the system after the 10th year. And at that point, they will relook at the system to see if they will continue with the upgrades and whatnot. In terms of decommissioning the system, it's also built into the agreement that the landowners group has secured for such a matter. So in the event that this gate needs to be decommissioned, there is funding available to remove the system as necessary. But I'll allow Mr. Newman to provide any additional commentaries as needed.
Mr. Cook, you did an excellent job in explaining that, or else if there's any further questions, I've got nothing to add.
Councillor Roy-DiClemente, go ahead, please.
I did have a further question. Let's try this one then. The principles outlined in the report note that the landowners group are responsible for odor and corrosion control. Obviously, if you're letting sewage sit in a pipe for a while, it's going to corrode. But I'm a little bit more concerned about odor and where this sewage will be held and for how long. While it's unusual for you to experience sewage odors outside the odor plume of the lagoons, it does happen on occasion around some of the other infrastructure in Northern York region. So I'm just wondering what issues there might arise and what odor control measures might need to be taken. Thank you.
I can speak to that through you, Madam Mayor. The system is not envisioned to be used on a regular basis. There is basically a dam that they will be installing, a weir, that will restrict the flow. That is only when their pumping station downstream is experiencing some difficulties with the amount of flow coming through. They will have the ability to restrict the flows coming here, in effect, improving their downstream abilities. Also, they are installing a facility on the edge of one of our storm ponds that will add some chemicals that will also help with the odor. but it is not intended, any of the sewers that are backed up, it's not intended to be in the sewer pipe for more than hours. So generally odors happen after extended periods of storage. So again, the risk of odors is almost zero.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm looking at the map on Appendix 3, and I'm seeing that I'm assuming that the sewage would be stored in that black line on Appendix 3, and that's basically our radial line trail system. So if the sewage is sitting there for an hour or two and it's starting to smell along the trail system, how often is this going to happen, I guess, is the best question I have.
I don't believe it's anticipated to be backed up for more than a couple of times a year, if that. That being said, because of the short duration, it's not anticipated that there will be any odors as a result.
Okay, so this is essentially a bit of an insurance policy if it's only going to be used a couple of times a year. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So it appears that there is some conservative estimates in how this is being proposed as far as the flows are concerned.
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Far be it for me or the rest of council, I suppose, to doubt the experts that tell us this is going to work. But my question is, where else has this been done? Are we the guinea pigs here to make sure this thing works, or has it been done somewhere else with success?
Who would like to answer that?
I can make an attempt. I can't tell you off the top of my head where it has been done. This has been done in the past. I know on some private sites, they will install what they call super pipes. What they are doing is basically what this facility will be doing without the mechanical advantage of a weir. So what happens is you have an outlet structure that is restricted. If the flows cannot be met by going through that restricted orifice, leaving that pipe, it backs up into the pipe until such time as the flows going out of that are sufficient. So this is not new technology. This is not something is uncommon. The mechanical weir is something that is not traditional, but again, it's not something that has never been done.
Go ahead, please.
So is there a possibility that this will start an influx of other areas of East Gwillimbury that want to do this same thing so that they can continue to build?
I would suggest that it's going to take this solution here happens to be the because of the drop structure and the depth of the structure. Physically, this was a good candidate for this solution because of the considerations on everywhere else, because of grades and danger to back up into homes. That solution would not be available everywhere else. This location happened to have those solutions that when that pipe fills up, there is no risk to any homes.
If I may, Madam Mayor, just one more thing. I wanted to go a little bit further in what Councillor Roy-DiClemente said. It seems to me a boots on the ground kind of guy that we are, in a sense, creating underground sewage lagoons. I've had my fill of sewage lagoons in the last little while, and there has to be odor. Every time you move that or let it go or store it, there has to be some odor. I already think that every once in a while, driving down the second concession, you get a little bit of an odor coming out of those vent pipes on the road. I certainly hope that there's a extensive backup plan if odor becomes an issue. Again, far be it for me to doubt what's going on, but it does raise some questions.
Comments to that? Mr. Webster, go ahead, please.
Madam Mayor, I'm certainly not the town engineer, but I have followed this closely, so I can provide some further information. If you go to Appendix 1, I think it's something that Lawrence and his team put together. It's very helpful. One of the questions asked of our organization frequently is, what are the impacts of the Upper York being delayed? And this is the Sharon West impacts of the Upper York delay. And essentially, this solution provides capacity to build all those red lots in there, several hundred lots, and completes the large majority, save and except for some of the baby blue lots, and frankly, the stuff to the south. The lands to the south are still awaiting Upper York approvals. We will be providing an update to Council on September 20th of our recent discussion with the panel, Madam Mayor, who are tabling their report to the Minister of the Environment on September 22nd. Okay, so that we're aware of, and we will provide as much information as we know. So that covers off some of the larger impacts. This isn't something that has been taken lightly. This is regional infrastructure and has an extensive regional approval process. And believe me, there's been years of meetings on this solution. This isn't something that came up yesterday. It's a $3 million investment by the Sharon West Developers Group that is above and beyond any regional development charge. So this isn't cheap. It's a very expensive option. And it's, as I said, been put through quite an extensive, and I would suggest to the point of almost risk averse, which has looked at things such as overflow, spills, odors. All of those elements have been taken a very hard look at. Our role in it has been as a third party. We're the town, so we're not the actual approval agency on this. It's the region. So I just want to assure Council that this has been extensively reviewed by the regional expert staff, consulting teams as well, and just to bring that to the table, that it's something that has been extensively reviewed.
Thank you. Councillor Roy-DiClemente.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Webster, thank you for those comments. It echoed sort of some of what I had been feeling initially, which was this is a solution that we've been waiting for, and our residents have been waiting for, and our community remains unfinished and incomplete because of the lack of that servicing. I'm fine to move forward. I think I was a little surprised to hear how infrequently this equipment would be actually used when I started to ask some of those questions. For me, there's a line in the report on page 4 of it says that there's a possibility that the inline solution could be extended further in order to address those 130 units. It seems to me that these are very conservative numbers, or very conservative flows, and I'm happy to move this in order to get most of Sharon Village completed, but I'd also like to have some further reporting from our staff on once it's been implemented, what the actual flows are. That was part of how that bonusing plan was put together in the first place, was once the houses were built and the flows were going, what did that look like, and was there any more capacity in the pipe? So for me, I'd like to add that there's a provision for staff to report back to us on the ability to extend it and complete those 130 units. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I like that this will complete the community. I like that it's innovative. I'm reassured by the answers to Councillor Roy-DiClemente's question about how often it will be used. My understanding then is that this will be temporary until we get the Upper York or equivalent. And I just want to make sure that it's not as temporary as the lagoons, that this is actually temporary. We're not, if there is an odor problem, we know it'll only be very short term. I'm not expecting, from what I'm hearing, that there would be an odor problem, but we know that it's short term, so I like that. So I'm in favor of this, and I'm looking forward to hearing what happens on September 22nd to find out how long this might be in place. So I will support this. One other comment. The map in Appendix 3 is so out of date. I don't know where that map came from. So I was looking at where this was going and trying to place it on this map that doesn't have any of the houses that have been built in the last 10 years. So when we're putting mapping in our agenda packages, if we can use more recent maps, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments? Staff? I'm not seeing any other questions. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, through Madam Councillor Roy-DiClemente does have her hand up.
She was moving it, I think. I think I felt that.
Just for clarification, Councillor Roy-DiClemente, you are revising the motion for the last clause to state that the council requests staff to report back on the ability to extend and complete the remaining units? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a mover. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Persechini. I will. I'll read it out in its entirety. Be it resolved that Joint Development Services, Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services, Legal Services Finance Report P 2022-28, dated September 7th, 2022, entitled Sharon Trunk Sewer Inline Storage Tri-Party Agreement be received, and that the town of East Gwillimbury enter into the Sharon Trunk Sewer Inline Storage Tri-Party Agreement among the corporations comprising the Sharon West Landowners Group identified in Report P 2022-28, the Sharon West Landowners Group being the trustee, the Region Municipality of York, and the town of East Gwillimbury in accordance with, I just lost that here. In accordance with the key principles set out in Report P 2022-28, Sharon Trunk Sewer Inline Storage Tri-Party Agreement, and that Council authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute the Sharon Trunk Sewer Inline Storage Tri-Party Agreement on the town's behalf, and any auxiliary or other documents to give effect thereto, subject to the town's solicitor approval.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the remaining and is on the screen before you as well. And that council requests staff to report back on the ability to extend and complete the remaining units.
Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Cook, is there anything else that we should be aware of today under your tutelage?
Not at this time, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are at item L, and that's Emergency and Community Safety Services with Chief McKenzie.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good morning. The purpose of the memo this morning is to provide council with an update on the overall progress of the Joint Fire Services Assessment undertaken in collaboration with the town of Georgina. The memo is fairly self-explanatory, but before I go on, I'd like to mention that there is a bit of a typo that was just noticed recently. On page 2, when it talks about the variety of virtual and in-person interviews, it gave a description of the number of people that were actually touched. In the original memo, it talks about 13. The third bullet down, it talks about 13 fire department managers. That should read 13 fire department management, administrative, training, and prevention staff. I apologize for the typo. I didn't want anybody to think that there were 13 managers in the fire department.
It's quite a growth.
So that's a minor correction, and I'm happy to take any questions on the memo, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Questions for the chief? I'm not seeing any at this time. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Persechini, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? And that's carried. Chief, do you have any other items you would like to share with us this morning?
Yes, Your Honor, just one small thing. Fire Prevention Week in Canada this year runs from Sunday, October 9th to Saturday, October 15th. ECSS is going to do their part and have an open house Fire Prevention Open House on Saturday, October 1st, from 10 o'clock till 3 o'clock at Station 28 in Queensville. I encourage everybody to come out if they can.
Is there a particular time you might want to have members of council attend?
Well, there is a conflicting event, but the open house at the fire station is a drop-in, pop-in kind of thing. So anytime you're more than welcome.
Thank you very much. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Roy-DiClemente, Councillor Crone, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We'll move along to item M, administration with CAO Webster.
Madam Mayor, I have to give yourself credit. We predicted we'd be at 11:30 at this point, so we're a little off, but we've been very much off in the
Sorry
past
about those 2 minutes.
at the other times. But we do have, we had that technical recess, so there you go. But we have two important matters. One's rather short, and then one deals with our Healthy Active Living Plaza consideration of tender award. I was wondering if it might be appropriate to take a brief recess now, and I think if we continue to work through, we'd be able to keep both any interested viewers and staff engaged to get to these two important matters.
Are you suggesting 15, 20 minutes, or?
I was wondering if we were back by 11:45, if that would be okay, and then we could have the presentation and then the report consideration.
I'm seeing nods, so we will take a recess now. Our clock is saying 11:33. We'll be back at 11:45. Thank you very much. We're back from a very short recess, and we're on item M, administration, with our CAO. Go ahead, please, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have two items on the agenda today. The first one is an update from our Human Resources and Organization Development Branch. As we try to achieve a diverse, inclusive, and safe and engaged community, we also try to emulate it with our workplace organization. I'd like to introduce Michelle Collette, our Director of Human Resources, who will head up this presentation.
Good to have you in front of us today.
Thank you. Great to be here. Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of council. Very pleased to be here this morning to give you a fulsome update of the work that we're doing in our particular functional area of health, safety, wellness, and training development. I'm very pleased today to introduce Chris McPherson, our Health, Safety, and Wellness Coordinator. Chris will take us through the update. Chris, please come up to the podium.
Good to have you with us, Chris.
Thanks, Michelle. Madam Mayor, members of council, it's good to see you all again. And thank you for your time today as I provide you this brief update on our health and safety program. If we go to the first slide, please. And I'm going to ask you to disregard this slide, if you could. We wanted to provide you with a brief update on COVID-19, and this is some of the information we sent out late July, early August to our staff. But at the tail end of last week, the province and York Region Public Health released the updated guidance, which now states if you're symptomatic or COVID positive and symptomatic, you're only isolating until you're without fever and your symptoms have been improving for 24 hours or 48 hours if those symptoms are gastrointestinal in nature. Additionally, you no longer have to isolate if you're a close contact, and that includes household members, which is a great improvement from where we were. The only thing they are saying is if you are returning from illness or close contact, that you wear a mask in public for 10 days from symptom onset, exposure, or positive test. So we're currently reviewing the new guidance, amending our procedures, and pending review and approval at the COVID control group update on Friday, we'll be releasing communication to staff. If we go to the next slide. So the members you see in front of you are the members of our Joint Health and Safety Committee. Over the past couple of years, we lost a few members to retirements and new opportunities outside the town of East Gwillimbury, which left us with kind of an imbalance between our management and worker representatives. Ideally, you want a 50-50 mix with a few more workers than you have management. So we put out a call to staff. If anyone was interested or knew anyone interested in joining the committee, to please let us know. And if we go to the next slide, you can join me in welcoming our newest members. We're now fairly equal between management and worker representatives, and with the move of staff to the operations center, we were lacking representation from the sports complex. So with Josh and Mike on there now, we have representation from the majority of our staff facilities. If we could go to the next slide. So just a few general updates for you today. The Human Resources team sat down and updated our accessibility policies and have formed an accessibility committee. And our first meeting is planned to be held in Q4 of this year. And one of the first things I really want to work on is a review and update of our accessibility training, not just awareness training, but training for staff who are content creators. If we're making documents, let's make sure they're accessible across the corporation. Additionally, there's the WSIB Excellence Program. I've spoke to you about this in the past. This is where we work with the WSIB and the Public Services Health and Safety Association to choose a number of topics to review, develop, and communicate to staff each year. And upon review and approval by the WSIB, we have the opportunity to earn a rebate on our premiums that we pay each year. So we're going to be kicking that off at the end of the month with a culture survey, which will be sent out to staff. This is an anonymous 5-minute survey that will let staff know about the program, what we're working on, and it will help give us an idea of how staff feel about our health and safety program as it stands today. And it'll allow us to choose which topics to work on in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, a little update on our learning management system and SharePoint. So our learning management system, or LMS, really just came into play right before COVID, which was quite ideal considering the remote training we needed to complete. The secondary purpose of the learning management system was to act as our town intranet. But now that we've transitioned to SharePoint, much of this content may no longer be required. So I'll be working with our IT team to review our technology needs and requirements to determine if the internet section on the LMS is still needed for anyone that may not have a town account or access to SharePoint, and from there determine if our current solution meets our needs or if there's a better solution out there for the corporation. Additionally, we'll be working with IT to add all our corporate policies, procedures, and forms to the corporate information site on SharePoint so that staff have access to those. Next slide, please. And I believe I spoke to you about LifeWorks previously. LifeWorks, formerly Morneau Chappelle, is our EAP provider. We recently launched a new website where staff can go on with an individual login and access additional programs and resources from our EAP provider. The individual logins allow us to implement things like social and recognition components, health assessments, perks, which include discounts and cash back for staff, almost similar to like a Rakuten. Wellness challenges, the most popular of which being the STEP challenge, and it can also provide us analytics on how services are being accessed to better provide health and wellness services to our employees. So we did send out a registration email to staff. We got about 100 people with that initial email, and we still have about 150 to get on the system, ideally. We ran our first STEP challenge with the exception of a few technological hiccups at the beginning. We thought it was a great success and are excited to do it again in the future. So from here, we want to go around and promote LifeWorks at departmental tailgate meetings. We think there is a bit of a disconnect in the name change from Morneau Chappelle, and staff aren't quite understanding that these are additional resources for them through our EAP program. And from there, we'll send out an additional registration reminder to staff to get more people on the platform. Once that's completed, we would like to promote a health assessment. Now, this is something we did through Morneau Chappelle maybe 5-8 years ago. I wasn't on the team, so I can't tell you the results of that. But given the past 3 years, we think this is an opportune time to do it again. And with LifeWorks, once a staff member completes the health assessment, the website will direct them to articles, self-led care programs, or counselors based on their results. And we'll also receive anonymous analytics that will hopefully provide us with information to determine where we should spend our time and resources to promote and provide better wellness initiatives to our staff. And that concludes my update, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Questions? I'm not seeing any. I have a comment that you have been very busy the last couple of years. We have seen you in all kinds of roles, but we know it was all about wellness in our family here at East Gwillimbury, and thank you very much. You were on speed all the time, and I, for one, and I have heard it from other members of council, how confident they were in the what you were doing. We needed to do something quickly in some cases, and in other cases a little longer, but you were there to stand up for all of our employees. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your kind words. I assure you it was a team effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? I'm not seeing any. With that, could I have a motion, please? Councillor Persechini, Councillor Crone. Be it resolved that Administration Human Resources Branch presentation September 2022 entitled Health, Safety and Wellness be updated, be received. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. The second item we have under administration, Mr. Webster, I'll let you introduce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will provide just a few opening context comments on this important matter, dealing with a report that's dealing with the largest public facility in town history. So it's an important report. Clearly, and I just wanted to provide some context about an organization that has a plan and is going to execute a plan. And just from the outset, this has been a long-awaited facility. It was many, many years ago, I'll remind council and others that are viewing today, that we shut the Queensville community facility at that time and turned it into, it was a fire hall and a community facility, and we turned it into a state-of-the-art fire hall for our full-time fire department. And there was a commitment made by the council at that time that there would be a community facility built of significance. We remain one of Ontario's few municipalities of this size that does not have a aquatic facility. And for that matter, a large community facility that would house multiple uses. And the plan has been and continues to be that as we grew, once we achieved about a 40,000 population threshold, that it would be time for construction of this facility. And we are now at that point in time. And we've had a project team coming up with a design that's been before council and the public for many years now. It did have a redesign to make it, I'd say, more practical. At one point, it had some elements that the council did not like with respect to some of the sort of roof and architectural elements. And importantly, council also took the time to take a look at the green building aspects. And through our Environmental Advisory Committee, they brought forward some considerations, and council took the time to make sure that we were incorporating the proper green and sustainable design elements in this build. COVID has had an impact on construction prices and costs, and our preliminary budget estimates that were approved by council have been put to the test from that. At this point in time, we have a proposal to award to a very qualified contractor, initially to focus on the bricks and mortar, the actual facility, and then have a subsequent tender for the park, adjacent park in the overall 16-acre complex. I will say that the plan has always been for a 40,000 population threshold to ensure that this facility did not cost the taxpayer $1 for the build itself. And that is still the plan, is that this will have no cost to the existing taxpayer. As well, we remain one of the few municipalities in Ontario that does not have debt, and the plan continues to be that we will not require debt issuance to achieve this facility. On that note, Madam Mayor, the final element I do want to say is it's good to be able to build a facility without debt and without cost to taxpayers, but we often get, well, what about operating it? And we have been, for the last several budget years, having a dedicated tax set aside, and the plan is to continue for the subsequent years, such that when we do open the facility, it will not have an impact on our tax rates, and we will remain the lowest tax jurisdiction in York Region. So I wanted to provide some context. I'm going to turn it over now to our staff team that have led this process. And there's been many departments involved, but clearly our Community Parks, Recreation and Culture team, led by Aaron Karmazin and Chris Catania, has been a very big role in building facilities and parks as well in the last few years. And as well, Warren Marshall and his team with Valadima and others have been working diligently on the procurement side and on the side regarding being able to fund this in a strategic manner. So I'm going to pass it over, I believe, to Mr. Karmazin. We're going to use the staff report. We do not have a separate presentation. I think what we're going to do is walk through the report with council, if they wish. There are some charts and tables as well, and then we look forward to the discussion and direction from council on this matter.
Okay.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, as CAO Webster indicated, the report before council provides a recommendation for the award of a construction contract for the Health and Active Living Plaza, architectural services and project management services, and a revised project budget and financial strategy. If council will permit, I will provide some opening remarks and some highlights from the report. The Health and Active Living Plaza is the highest priority project for parks and recreation service delivery for our residents, as identified in the 2018 council-approved Parks and Recreation Master Plan. The project is the largest in the town's history and includes the town's first aquatic center, large-scale library, gym with walking track and potential fitness, and program and permit space. The Appendix 1 provided to Council provides some renderings of all the facility amenities. The project is also the most environmentally friendly project the town has undertaken, incorporating our Thinking Green development standards and some council-approved industry-leading net zero design concepts. Development charges, as CAO Webster indicates, has growth paying for growth when the residents require service delivery. The design and construction of the process is fully funded through development charges at absolutely no cost to the taxpayer. The town is and will maintain a debt-free position with no external debt based on the proposed financial strategy before Council. Staff have provided background information on inflation, construction pricing, including recent municipal comparators, and some context and background related to the park pricing with this tender submission and the subsequent timing. The proposed construction contract includes the facility only, with the park scope proposed to be tendered and constructed separate and directly subsequent to the facility construction. Lastly, we've provided background information about the recommended general contractor. This is also provided. The contractor has completed over 100 successful projects over the past 30 years and several examples of municipal library and aquatic center facilities in York Region and the Greater Toronto Area. Madam Mayor and Council, our staff team is available to answer any questions related to the report.
Thank you, Mr. Karmazin. Questions from members of council? Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
I want to thank staff for this very fulsome report and allowing us the time to take a look at this and reach out to other facilities, other municipalities that have had facilities by this team. I just had a question on the chart. I'm glad that we have a much more fulsome chart. But when we're comparing the bottom line, their total funding, council approved budget estimate versus the proposed tender award and revised budget, we don't have any money in there for the park. So in column A, we have $5.3 million for the park shown as part of that total funding, but that we have nothing in the final column. So again, we're not comparing apples to oranges here. The 89 million, if we're removing the park, then that budgeted amount needs to be removed from what we're comparing that to. So we have a budget for this project of 89 minus the 5.3 to compare to the 104 that we're talking about spending. So I just want to be clear on that. And if the result of the tender is closer to 12 million, then I feel we should have something in there as a budget for the park so that we have a really clear idea of how much this total is going to cost us, because we're not going to build this without the park. It's going to be in the future, but we know it's not going to be free. So we either take the 5.3 million out of the council approved budget because we're not talking about the park today, or we put an amount in that final column that shows what we think the park is going to cost when we eventually have to build it. Because the 104 million is not going to include the park. It's going to be substantially more than that. And I just think we need to be really transparent on what this entire project is going to cost. Anyways, I appreciate the background that went into this to help us understand how the prices have increased, et cetera. So thank you for this.
Comments, questions? Mr. Webster?
So the reason this was done is, if you notice, if you go to the line item that talks about the facility itself, the 75 million has been increased to 77 million. And some of that deals with these adjacent park elements as explained to me. So the pure park number, I understand now, would be closer to 6 million. It's a 5 million plus an inflationary factor that isn't double. It doesn't bring it to 12 million. The task at hand that staff will have to take a look at to refine this table is how much of that 2 million is related to the 6 million, if you could follow the logic. So that's why we put in the at this point, future, but the councillor does make good points, and it's something that staff could take a look at, certainly updating this table to reflect it in a more transparent manner.
Thank you, because if it's a revised budget that we're looking at, I assume that we want a revised budget for the park too, so it needs to be in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to staff, Mr. Carmison. I'm looking at page 3 of your report, and I'll echo what Councillor Carruthers said. I'm grateful for such a thorough report. And I appreciate the comparisons that you've provided in the chart at the top of the page. I was just curious if you could perhaps enlighten me a bit. There is quite a swing in difference of cost per square foot between the Western North York project of $865 a square foot compared to the Guelph South End of $660, so 200 dollars and change difference. Would you have any sense of why there was such a big swing in the difference per square foot? Because usually in the industry there is sort of a uniformity in construction costs. I was just, is one more elaborate than the other, or was the other one just better at negotiating their price?
Through you, Madam Mayor, what sticks out with this chart is two things. Number one is the timing and how things have escalated over 6 months, number one. And the second part, specific to the project value, there could be some economies of scale with a larger project value. You can see the Prince Albert and the Guelph South projects are both topping out over $100 million, so there might be some economies of scale that are built into the cost per square foot pricing. But I think the intent of the table is to show what we've seen is a consistent escalation in pricing over the last 2 economic quarters, and then as well, we're certainly not alone in that our construction pricing is in this neighborhood as far as our tender value and what our municipal comparators are tendering it at.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you to Mr. Carmison, I appreciate the answer. It's certainly it's been stated that this is quite a project that we're undertaking. I know others in council who've been here longer than I. This is a long time coming, and I think 10, 12 years we've been working on it and saving up for it. And the good news is that we have the money. It's not going to cost the tax dollar a dollar to build it, which is good news. I think our recent project of the Loblaws distribution center, the development charges from that alone should pay about 10% of this project, and we have more economic development on the way that's going to help fund it. So, we were elected to make decisions. Let's get on with it and get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Persechini, go ahead, please.
To you, to Mr. Carmison. Once this has been approved, how do we pay this out? Is it drawn as we go on phases, like first phase, second phase? Is that how the money's drawn out, or are we obligated to pay the whole thing at once?
Through you, Madam Mayor, once the construction contract is awarded, payment is based on progress. So we will receive progress draws as construction occurs, and we will only pay for the amount of construction that's been performed or completed on site. It's estimated the duration of the build out is 2 years, so we will see progress draws as the project progresses, and those are monthly. and those are verified by the architect, engineers, and project team as far as the completion of construction, and then they're paid. So to answer your question, over the 24 months, we would see a drawdown on the total contract value through those progress draws.
If we have all this money put aside, Mr. Webster, maybe you could help me. Are we getting interest in the money as we kind of, monthly, or how does that work in the financial department of, let's you say $100 million and we only draw, 20 million or whatever? How does it work? Are we getting interest in all this money is it sitting somewhere? I just want to know a little more about it if it was my money. So how does it work?
Madam Mayor, I think Treasurer Marshall could provide some perspectives on the funding strategy and some of the rather innovative things that staff have done with respect to it.
Because there's a lot of money, the interests keep going up, we can make some good money on the money if it's sitting somewhere. And, so we can offset some of the cost. That's where I'm thinking I'm going.
Mr. Marshall, are you able to answer that question?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. To answer Councillor Persechini's question, we do invest our reserve funding. We have a couple of strategies that we used for investments, and we have been able to take advantage of some of the rate increases that have happened. So we have been able to make some significant amounts in terms of our interest that we have in our reserves.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Roy-DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is, I think it goes without saying, a very big day for East Gwillimbury and our residents. I'd like to echo Councillor Carruthers' comments about including the cost of the park in the overall project budget so that when the time does come, we've planned for it. Through you, Madam Mayor, my question is, according to my math, which is sometimes adventure math, we have a shortfall in the DCs of about $15.6 million. That's a process in that the report notes that we have to update the DC bylaw in order to collect those funds. But that in itself is a process that has some due process and procedures, and it's an appealable process. What's the plan B if we aren't successful in amending our DCs, which are already somewhat high?
Mr. Webster, perhaps you could address that?
Madam Mayor, I will. I go back a long ways with Treasurer Marshall and development charges. So one thing we've learned over the years is upfront and direct discussion. We plan on, subsequent to Council's consideration of this, a meeting of the development industry for next week. Ultimately, the plan is to bring a bylaw amendment, and we can do this, we're still nimble and flexible as a local government, to the September 20th meeting of council. And a lot of people say, geez, there's an election, and you're elected for this term. We're here to serve our residents, and we will have a discussion with the industry. We will bring forward a new background study, and the plan, my latest discussions with our senior management team and Mr. Warren Marshall and his team, is that we would actually be looking at bringing the DC amendment forward to the first meeting of the new council in December. So there's a lot of ground to cover. There are some alternative funding sources that haven't been discussed up to this point, and I think this is important. The issue of, for some of the green and environmentally sustainable features, potentially using gas tax, federal gas tax. Discussions with MPP Mulrooney's office regarding potential provincial funding towards this is what came up as a discussion point. And one of the avenues that we haven't tapped at this point, or even ventured into, Madam Mayor, we've discussed, is the whole notion of private donations. And, we have a plethora of stakeholders that would have an interest in this facility and members of the public. And it might be time to start a campaign as well to outreach and see if we can help towards the cost of this facility that's a generational facility. It's here for many, many decades to come.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Roy-DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just, for me, I want to have some certainty as if we're awarding a contract and we don't have the full amount ready, I'd like to know where that 15 million would come from if it's not coming from DCs.
Mr. Webster?
So
I think Treasurer Marshall might be best to take a attempt at this answer. Go ahead, Mr. Marshall.
Mr. Marshall, go ahead, please.
yes, through you, Madam Mayor. If we are short in our DCs at the time, we can borrow internally from other reserves. And that borrowing can take place over many number of years as we need until the DCs are collected, and that we have enough DCs to collect that would satisfy the amount that we need.
Go ahead,
So
please.
to be abundantly clear, the chart on page 6 of the report that says that we're doing internal borrowing and provisional items for 11 million, what we're hearing now is that there is 11 plus 15.6 million in reserves that we can use.
Oh, sorry. So through you, Madam Mayor, the internal borrowing line that is there is the interest cost associated with the borrowing. So we actually have more than the 11 million available to borrow from, but we've anticipated that the cost to borrow, so the interest charge, and some provisional items would total $11 million. We've made a provision for that.
So through you, just
So
I
we
just
do
wanna
have
make
more
sure-
than 11 million.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Through you, Madam Mayor, just to clarify then, if we are unsuccessful, obviously, the main course of action here is to raise the DCs and have that money come in as expected. But if we are unsuccessful, we do have the ability to borrow against other reserves to the tune of 15.6 million.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Persechini would like to move it. I would take that as long as everyone else has had an opportunity to speak. Thank you. So at this point, we've been asked for a recorded vote.
Through you, Madam Mayor, can we have a seconder before calling for that?
Councillor Roy-DiClemente.
Wonderful. Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Crone has requested for a recorded vote. Councillor Crone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Foster, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Haxon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Just noting that Councillor Morton is absent with notice. Councillor Persechini, how do you vote?
Absolutely, yes.
Councillor Roy-DiClemente, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Carruthers, how do you vote? Yes. Through you, Madam Mayor, that motion's been carried.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webster, is there any other discussion at this point following that vote?
Madam Mayor, I think we'll take it as direction to update the cost to include the park. And as I said, Lawrence Cook, General Manager of Development Services, is setting up a meeting with the industry to talk about this matter and a few others next week. And the plan at this time is to bring forward a draft DC background study that needs to be publicly distributed to start that process in place for the bylaw amendment. And I will remind Council, we amended the bylaw earlier this year in January for this. And so the good news from my perspective is, given the changing times and economic circumstances, the fact that we still have the ability to modify our funding sources before award of the tender puts us in a very good position. And we have built in some provisional items, as Mr. Marshall has taken a very risk-averse approach that will ensure that we have the adequate funding when we need it to build the project. There will be regular project reporting. On the project management side, I think we would like to come back to Council because Chris Catania and his team have talked about dedicated staff that will be on site 100% of the time We will be putting in video cameras as we have in the past to monitor construction activity. And one of the things when you do look is Aquacon does have a significant track record, successful track record of building these type of facilities. So I saw the Oak Ridges Community Center is on that list, and if anybody hasn't seen it, if you just drive down Bayview Avenue, which turns into the Bayview Parkway, I guess, up near us, but it's a significant, beautiful facility in Richmond Hill, and I think ours will be much the same.
Better.
Thank you. We had talked about, sorry, Mr. Webster, you had spoken about engaging the community to fundraise. And there's at least a couple people on council here, maybe more, who've been involved with that short-term, long-term, et cetera. Is that a possibility at this point as well? At what point do you engage the community to fundraise? Do you have any idea where we might want to go with that?
From an outset, there's two avenues you can take. You can hire a professional firm, but there is a fee. And I think the doors they may knock on may be doors we could open potentially on our own. The first group I think you look towards is the Queensville Properties Group. And you look at the Markham Town Center, where Rudy Brady contributed a significant amount to the Brady YMCA development. And, you know, there are potential that would all have to be subject to council approval and discussion, but for potential naming rights for the whole facility. There's also been facilities that have been successful that have had naming rights for certain aspects. So the Aquatic Center could be the library, even community meeting rooms, and adjacent park elements. So I think there could be some discussion and maybe, again, direction for a further report on this as to maybe how we could strategically make sure that the same doors aren't being banged upon and to give it a focus. So maybe we could ask Mr. Marshall and Mr. Karmazin's groups to put together an overall strategy for how that may look at as we move towards getting a shovel in the ground.
Councillor Persechini, go ahead, please.
I personally believe that we should not hire anybody. We could do it ourselves.
I think when you take a look at some of the other facilities in Southern Ontario, they have done it on their own. We know our community better than anyone else. Exactly. And I think collectively we could work as a team to set up a committee and move forward with that. Just a thought, but that's where I think we should be going at this point. Any other comments, questions? I'm not seeing any at this point. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have dealt with the motion associated with Admin Report 2203. There are no more additional items currently on the prepared agenda under administration. So your next item is N, Legal Services.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item N. I'm sure that this last topic we've discussed, people need a little time to really think about the direction to go, particularly the item regarding public input as well as, and when I say input, financial input, as well as comments about the facility itself. So thank you very much. We're down to item N, and that's legal town solicitor. Is Ms. Ingram, are you with us?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have no agendas on the legal.
Welcome. Good to have you with us. I'm not sure that there may be questions of you as well. Are there any questions of our new town solicitor? Seeing none, welcome aboard, and I'll move on
Thank
to.
you.
I'll move on.
Very glad to be here.
We're glad to have you with us. We'll
Thank you.
move along to item O, and that's Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services with General Manager Molinari.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. CAS has nothing at this time, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions at this point as far as Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services? Seeing none, I will move along to item P, and this is correspondence for consideration from a resident, L. Kerr, regarding the speed limit on Harold Road between Woodbine and Warden. We have a staff member who has taken carriage of this item.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Webster?
Madam Mayor, I believe it would be Mr. Newman who would be able to speak to this matter.
Thank you. Mr. Newman, are you still there with us?
I am, Madam Mayor. Bear with me for 1 second. I was not prepared for this, but I will
these
do
are
my
things
best.
that you know, you just know all the time. You work with them. And so we have a letter from a resident wanting to change the speed limit on the Harold Road, and between Woodbine and Warden, and the steps that need to be taken. If you could just quickly cover them over, that sometimes council makes a decision on something like this. Other times, it's important to have staff comment on it. And for me, I'm not speaking for everyone else, but for me, it would be important for staff to have some discussion regarding the speed limit on Harold between Woodbine and Warden. It's a very specific area, and I'm not sure if there are reasons for having that specific area changed and not the entire road itself. And I do understand that many times there's a study done on the road to determine, in fact, if we should be making a change with that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Based on the information that's being shared right now, I can suggest that town staff have been out there and done some additional studies in the area. As per this response to Mr. Kerr, staff have identified that the average speed is well below the posted speed limit at this time. Again, staff are not recommending a speed limit change at this time. We can go out there and continue to monitor this, which I have no issue doing. So I would suggest maybe now that school is back in session, we can do a further study probably in the next month or two in September, October to see if the results have changed from our previous look, which was done in May of this year. So staff are more than happy to go back out and do a further study and respond back to Mr. Kerr with the results, as well as council.
Thank you very much. Would you also be looping in with YRP?
Absolutely. We'll make sure that we can speak with YRP and see if they can post some cars there. In the past, we share the results of our studies with them, and that also has an influence on them in posting their cars as well.
Wonderful. Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may share a little background, Mr. Kerr has communicated with me a few times on this. I think it's important to note that not only is it a question of speed, but it's also a question of sound. The noise from the traffic on this road. We have a development that's growing right behind it on Peter Snyder that I think going 70 the noise is you know, unwanted. And you have an S-curve there that they go from 50 and then it goes back up to 70. So there's an acceleration. And you also have an agribusiness on that same stretch, Meanwhile Farms. And so I personally think dropping it down to 60 kilometers an hour would be warranted, if not based just on the speeding that has been there. And I will assure you that the residents in that neighborhood, contrary to what you might hear in the report, they are dealing with their share of offenders there. So I think looking to the future with the growth in that community and that quadrant of Warden and Harold Road, I think dropping it to 60 is warranted. If we can't decide that today, I'd certainly welcome any report, but I would like to see it drop to 60 kilometers an hour. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
I'm hoping that working with YRP that we can change that. It is a very busy road, and it's a very narrow road as well. It really, when I drive on it, there's not a lot of room when you meet a larger vehicle coming the other way. So I think if staff could work with YRP and come up with speed changes, that may be the best that we can do at this point. I'm not sure long-term whether there are plans to change that road itself, but it's certainly not in the next couple of years. And if we could reduce the speed, I think everybody would be much happier with it and safer. Councillor Roy-DiClemente and then Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I'm extrapolating from the data that's presented in this piece of correspondence, while the posted speed limit is 70, the average speed is 63. So people aren't necessarily speeding on average. However, when you look at the 85th percentile, they are going above 70. So it seems to me that there are some outliers that are exceeding the speed limit there. Obviously, the road is meant to take almost twice as much traffic as it is, so it's not a question of volume. But what I might suggest is if we've done some studies that we provide some, there must be a time of day where we're seeing that 73 kilometers an hour happen, and that's where I might ask that enforcement take place. But on the surface, it doesn't appear that there is an issue. But there's obviously some outliers there that are causing some issues, and the reality is that the residents here can't do road watch reports because it's their backyards and they can't see the cars and their driver's license and the licenses on the cars to be able to file a road watch report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Webster, go ahead, please.
Madam Mayor, this is actually a very interesting one, in my opinion. The public itself is going well below the speed limit, which indicates that the speed limit is too much. And I think when you drive that road on your own, it's narrow. There's a lot of trees on the way. I think if not, it could be referred back to staff, because we tend to do these studies. And as the region does traffic studies, sometimes they don't make sense. And to me, it would be inoffensive to lower it to 60, but I don't want to prejudge. So maybe we could report on the September 20th meeting with another look at this to see if a move to 60 might be a little more effective for the road in general.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. So perhaps we can receive it today and ask for staff to come back with a report next month. Now, Councillor Carruthers, you had a question as well.
Thank you. Mr. Webster beat me to it, but I looked at this the exact same way. When I saw 63, we rarely see that. That means that half of the residents are going below 63, right? So residents don't think that 70 is safe. This is very clear data on that. So I'd be very supportive of looking at lowering this in that stretch. So look forward to seeing the report back.
Thank you. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Crone, Councillor Carruthers, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We are on item 2 of correspondence, and this is the Mount Alberton District Lions Club. Wow, what a what a busy, dynamic service club they've stepped up in the last year and a half. They're everywhere, including the opening of our new facility. And they are now thinking about Santa Claus, and December 3rd would be what they would normally have for a parade. They do the parade in Mount Albert, not outside of that area, and they are asking for permission to hold it this year. Any comments, questions? Councillor Crone, you'd like to support this? Absolutely. Thank you. And Councillor Foster is going to second that. We're all in favor of having Santa show up this year. All those in favor? That's carried. What was that? Item number 3 is requesting the exemption of the town's fireworks. This is an interesting one. So many people do it without asking. I think it's very commendable that they have come forward, and I hope they've invited their neighbors. If it's going to, it sounds like it's a small family fireworks as opposed to something much larger, but I don't see an issue with it. They have come and asked, and good for them. And I think we should support this. It's an engagement, I think, they're celebrating. Any questions, comments?
I hope we're not ruining the surprise.
I hope we're not.
Happy to support it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and Councillor Persechini will second that motion. All in favor? And that's carried. And we have bylaws. I have a mover and a second for bylaws, please. Councillor Crone, Councillor Carruthers, all those in favor? And that's carried. That's item Q. We have a notice of motion. I've just lost it. Yes, go ahead, Madam
Through you, Madam Mayor. The first notice of motion is one that was presented at the July 19th council meeting, and it has already been moved by Councillor Carruthers and seconded by Councillor Roy-DiClemente. Late yesterday, I had emailed members of council with respect to an intent of a proposed notice of motion being presented by Councillor Crone and Councillor Roy-DiClemente. Perhaps once this item is done and dealt with, we may proceed into discussion on how to waive the procedure bylaw to
Thank you.
Entertain that.
Okay. Would either one of you like to speak to this at this point? Both of you, if you choose to do so.
I think this we spoke to this in quite detail at the July 19th meeting, so given the hour, I don't want to go too long onto this. I believe that most of the people at this table are in support of this. It's basically looking at, as we're developing East Gwillimbury, we know that we're pushing wildlife onto the roads, whether it's as small as a frog or as big as a deer. We're seeing more and more wildlife on roads, and cars hitting them, and these vehicle wildlife collisions are devastating to the wildlife, but also impact our residents. And there is ways to mitigate this, and the Conservation Authority it encourages municipalities to adopt policies for road ecology in our municipal planning documents. So I'd like to see staff come back to us with how that can be integrated into our transportation master plan, as well as asking the region when they're doing reconstruction or redesign to look at road ecology mitigation efforts that can be put in place at an affordable cost, so that we don't have residents braking suddenly for a turtle and being rear-ended by a dump truck. We want to make sure that our roads are safe for our residents and for the animals that live in the area. So that's what this is about, and I've moved it, and Councillor Roy-DiClemente has seconded it, and I would ask for my colleagues for their support. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? I look forward to working with this whole idea. I think that while we're growing, we are going to still be 83% green. And we want the deer and the wildlife to be a part of our community. That's what makes it us unique. We're not paving over the entire community and build a bunch of houses and shopping centers. We're trying to find a balance, and this is one way of making sure that we don't forget about the balance. So I'm fine with that. And I don't know if anyone else has any comments at this point as well. So it's already been moved and seconded at this point, and there are no questions. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And is there, yes,
Through you, Madam
go
Mayor.
ahead.
So there is an outstanding proposed notice of motion that's being presented by Councillor Crone and Councillor Roy-DiClemente with respect to facility permit fees for town-owned facilities to host municipal debates. Should council wish to proceed with entertaining this particular motion, we would have to waive the procedure bylaw to include and consider the notice at today's meeting. So you would just require a mover and a seconder to waive the procedure bylaw. Following that, we will present a notice of motion.
I might say that if we don't deal with it today, it certainly makes it much shorter to be able to host something of this nature. So I'm fine with having a motion to move and second it and deal with it now. Councillor Crone, Councillor Carruthers, all those in favor? That's carried.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just for public's purpose, I will pull the notice of motion onto the screen before you. It's been moved by Councillor Crone and seconded by Councillor Roy-DiClemente.
And this is what we've just voted on.
No, through you, Madam Mayor, you
Sorry,
just
we
voted
voted
on
to
the
get it
waiving
up
of the
there.
procedure. bylaw.
Yes.
That's correct.
Get it up there.
You would still need a vote on this one.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Persechini, seconded by, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we're all ready to go. All those in favor? Oh, do you want to speak? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam
Sorry.
Mayor. I thought this was an important piece of information to bring forward. We're into election time, and we want to encourage voter turnout and voter engagement. And so I thought by waiving the hall rental fees of any town facility, that would be a nice incentive for any community groups or individuals that wanted to promote debates, either townwide or within their wards. And I think this, when you have voter turnout at roughly 30%, we need to do better. And so this is a good way to get at it. So I hope we could move with this motion, but also enact it right away, so that any group that wants to hold a debate, we waive their hall rental fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
I'm in support of this motion, but I just wanted clarity on the second last clause, that municipal debates cannot take place on a date when there is a voting location established at a town-owned facility or property. Is the intention that you can't have a debate, say, at the Hull and Landing Community Center when that is a voting location? Or is it, if the way it reads, it sounds like if there is any voting location, you can't have it on any facility. So I just wanted to get some clarity on that and a follow-up as well.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is a statement from the town's corporate use policy. So it's just reiterating the matter that on a day where there is a polling station established at a location, as you alluded to earlier, there cannot be a municipal debate held at that particular location in its entirety.
Okay, so it's at that location. I think those words that were missing.
Yeah,
At that location on that day. And then my other question was, this would not apply to online voting. If we have online voting happening, we're still free to have debates, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. That's not impacting the town facility.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Foster, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Is this something we're waiving for now, but we need to put on our radar for the next term of council to fix it correctly?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would propose that, yes, this is something that should be reflected into a revised use of corporate resources policy for the future term of council.
Councillor Roy-DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When we adopted that use of corporate resources policy, I think we were focused very much on candidates' behavior and not so much on the reality of those parties who wanted to provide opportunities for candidates to present their ideas to the public. And so it was an unfortunate offshoot of what happened, and both Councillor Crone and I had committees come to us saying, okay, we want to put on an event, how do we do so in a fiscally responsible fashion? So that was the reason for us trying to wiggle this on here in a timely fashion, and I appreciate our council's indulgence on the matter. Thank you.
I think most of us had that discussion. I'm not sure it was just a couple. I would expect that probably all of council has had that discussion, so thank you very much.
Through you, Madam Mayor, you just require a vote from members of council.
All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Is there any other business at this time? I'm not seeing any. With that, we have a confirming bylaw. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Persechini, Councillor Roy-DiClemente. All those in favor? That's carried. And an adjournment for this meeting at 12:47. Councillor Persechini and Councillor Crone. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Thank you.